Township Board meeting for October the 15th, 2019. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Carrie, would you take roll call?
Bob Palma,
I'm here.
Patty Back,
Here.
Shelley Kidd,
She's excused.
Jim Christopher,
Here.
Gina Muzzarelli.
Here.
Okay, good. Has everybody got a copy of the agenda for tonight? And is there any questions or additions or changes we want to go to it? If not, a motion would be in order to approve it as submitted.
I'll motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Questions or comments from the board? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's approved. Also, you should have a copy of the agenda from the September 9th Township Board meeting and Fire Board minutes and the special board meeting of October 2nd. Are there any questions or comments on those? Not a motion's in order to approve those.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Not? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Moving on, financials. Patty, do we have any budget amendments?
No, it looked pretty good this month.
I'm feeling good.
I did the ones from last month that we had.
Okay.
I didn't see any others.
And we should have the accounts payable here. You want to go over that?
The accounts payables were
78 and 30, I think it is.
The accounts payables were $78,318.87 for 101 and 701. And for fire, the total was $30,665.69. So that's the
So we want to make a motion to approve the,
I'll make a motion to approve accounts payable as presented.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Carrie, would you take a roll call on it?
Patty Back,
Yes.
Jim Christopher,
Yes.
Gina Muzzarelli,
Yes.
Bob Palma.
Yes. Okay, and you should have your financial reports for general fire and building funds. I did not have any questions. Did anybody else have any on it? Okay, if not, a motion to accept them as submitted.
I'll make the motion to accept the financial reports as submitted for general fire and building.
Is there a second?
I'll second
Any questions or comments from the board? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, they're accepted. Investment report, we all got that. Shelley's excused today. We knew she wouldn't be here, but things look fine on that. Under public hearings, I have no items on this agenda. Under presentations, I have no items. And under unfinished business, no items. So I'll move directly to new business. First item on the agenda is to welcome our new trustee. So Gina Muzzarelli, welcome to the board, and we will get you a name plaque as soon as they come back. Okay?
Long one.
Yeah, that's all right. It's a good Italian. Okay, so welcome to the board, and Patty is going to
Swear
Swear
your
me.
name first. So, I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of trustee, term ending 11/20/2020, in and for the Township of Groveland. Do I just say yes?
Yes.
County of Oakland and State of Michigan, according to the best of my abilities.
The county and the, Oakland and the state of Michigan in accordance with the best of my abilities.
Okay. And then we'll just get you to sign here.
that's what makes it official.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll swear Jim in next on the planning.
Yeah, I'll explain that one.
Yeah.
Welcome. Okay, now the next item is typically what happens is in the township board, one of the trustees has to be on the planning commission, one has to be on the board of zoning appeals. I generally take the newest trustee and put them on the planning commission because it's just a little easier to get used to things and there's not as many meetings. And in Jim's case, one of the reasons we got you on as a trustee originally is because your extensive background in facilities management that I think will be particularly beneficial going forward in what we do in developing the township property. So, unless you got an objection, what I would like to do is appoint Jim Christopher to the planning commission. And then the next item on the agenda is Gene, to put you on the board of zoning. Okay.
I'll just travel around tonight. So here's what we'll do. So, I do solemnly swear
Solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
that I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of Planning Commission
the duties of the office of Planning Commission
in and for the Township
in and for the Township
of Groveland
of Groveland,
and County of Oakland
County of Oakland,
and State of
and State
Michigan,
of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right?
Okay.
You can do that. Or mine.
When which one for your pen?
Right there.
Shuttle on over to the other side.
Think I have this memorized. Okay. So, I do solemnly
I
swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of zoning board
and I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of zoning board
in and for the Township of Groveland,
in and for the Township of Groveland,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
and State of
and
Michigan,
the State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right.
I noticed that doesn't have a term ending.
It's with the trustee position.
Yeah.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, moving to D, is to discuss the master plan. I hope all of you got Ben's package, which had the master plan in it, and then a subsequent attachment that Carrie sent us, I think a day or two later from Ben, that had the overlay district in it that we talked about. I have read the whole document over, and I think this is consistent with everything we've done. I don't know if anybody else has questions. These sticky notes are because I had to read this over in 3 days, so I didn't get cross-eyed. But what I did is, there's a couple of suggestions, and I've talked to Ben about it. One, when he prepared this draft for our review, the information's correct, but the picture on the front is the stockyards at Bedrock. That's not what I think we want the front image to be. So I told Ben, I don't know if that's what you're actually planning on putting when you print it, but I do want the township office in the front. I think that's much better. The rest of these stickers are almost exclusively small, minor typo errors, where they hyphenated or where they shouldn't be. So I marked all of them, and I told him when he gets back to me, I'll go over each of those with him. And the third item that I found on it, if you notice, some of the graphics that he used from our earlier discussions with him on the master plan, somehow when they got transferred into this, I think they're a bit blurry and the small print on them is difficult to read. So he's going to have to figure out how to sharpen the image on it. But the document itself is correct, has the right information in it, it's consistent with what we want, at least in my opinion. I don't know if anybody else has anything else that they want to add to it.
The only thing I can say is I get these as PDFs, so I've edited mine on a PDF, but it's essentially just all the typos and spelling.
Okay. And if you want,
I'll send it to you.
send it to me and we'll buck it on to Ben at the same time. All we're required to do today is really approve this subject to the final corrections we have so that they can start the process. What actually happens is when this gets done in its final form with the editing finished on it, it ends up going to Oakland County's Planning Department, Economic Development people, and been emailing back and forth to them today. I've got a meeting set up tentatively for the 29th, so they will get a copy to review it to make sure it's consistent with the county's plans. There's not gonna be any problem on this. And then they also send it to the surrounding communities to make sure there's no radical changes in any of the boundary border positions of the township. And the purpose for that is, hypothetically, if we took one of our borders and made it heavy industry and it was next to a residential district or something, a community next door could object to it. But as I've said, when we go through this master plan, about 95% of the plan is essentially the same as it's always been out here. The message from all the public meetings and all the discussions has always been consistent out here to maintain the rural kind of quality and the up north issues. The bulk of the changes of this are really in addressing what we've branded as the Dixie Byway, which is the area going on Dixie Highway that actually starts in Springfield at exit 93 where 75 crosses, comes all the way through Groveland and then cuts back into I-75 and Holly at 106. And so that's where we envision some commercial support activities for the recreational stuff that's out here, where the ORV park is becoming kind of the spark plug for that. Other than that, 99% of the township should be, just exactly the way it is, pretty much. And so I think we should approve this, subject to the typos and the photo change and any others that you want to send me. And then when we get multiple copies of this back after the county approves it and the surrounding communities approves it, takes a couple of months to go kind of round robin through that. We will finally have the new master plan done. And it has the overlay district in it, which will help us have a higher degree of control on what we do for those properties that are on Dixie Highway or Grange Hall, I-75, so that we get kind of a consistent look at it. And Springfield's already done something for their part of Dixie Highway, and George Cullison Holly has indicated he wants to take whatever we've got when it's finished and adopt it into highway, into the master plan for Holly. So we should have a nice consistent look with the style and architecture that gets used and types of signing and all that stuff that happens on it. So with that, unless there's some questions from the board members, I'd like a motion to approve the master plan subject to the changes that we just discussed and get it to Ben for final preparation.
I'll motion that we send the master plan with the changes that were discussed and marked to Ben and get it started going to the different communities.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I can second that.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
I did want to say one thing.
Sure.
I attended the community meetings, and that was the first thing I went through to look at when I saw this. Is this what I remembered happening
Yep.
there? And
There's
yes,
actually quite a
it
few
is.
pictures
Yes.
from those meetings
Yeah,
there, too.
yeah. So I was happy to see that.
Okay, good. Okay, with that, motion was made, seconded. No other questions or comments from the board? Carrie, just for the record, take a roll call vote on it.
Jim Christopher,
Yes.
Gina Musarelli,
Yes.
Bob DiPalma,
Yes.
Patty Back.
Yes.
Okay, I will let Ben know tomorrow when I call him and if you get those changes to me, I'll attach it to an email and send it to him. Next item on the agenda is discuss the IT server update proposal. Patty, I think you had that.
Yeah, I do. And our server is, they're telling us, it's gonna be over 4 years in January. So they prepared a quote, this is from IT Right, who does our computers and our servers and all that stuff that I just call them and say, hey, can you help me with this? But they're good. So,
It's all of our in-house IT equipment.
they're saying that this is, it's running server 2012, so typical replacement times for servers are between 4 and 5 years old. So it's technical identified that you're having roaming profile issues related to our current server that we need to clean up and rebuild Active Directory. Doing this with a new server, new operating system would be ideal. The technology that handles things like roaming profiles is much improved in later renditions of the operating system. They're suggesting this for 2020. And they did give us a quote The quote is, the total would be $4,777.10. Server basic is $2,600. The 4 TB SATA is $571.80. Backups, $165.30, and then their labor cost is $1,800, and they did give us a discount on that of $360. So the total for this would be $4,777.10. And I wasn't here or the day they came in and looked at this, but I imagine if we approve it, we could get them going on it and get it going. But while we're on this note, I had to call, we had IT Right come out today to do the election computers. And they're on Windows 7. So we need to have our election computers on Windows 10. For this election, we're fine. I called the Bureau in Lansing and they said, no, we can still run the e-poll book on 7 for this one, but 2020, before March of 2020, and that's gonna be just around the corner.
Well, before the fiscal year for us starts.
Mhm. And I didn't see that coming. We will need new computers to run that Windows 10 because the ones we have, they don't have enough, I don't know if it's hard drive or whatever it is to make them go.
Do we get the money for that back from the state?
Well,
That's election related or not?
I know. I did ask today when I was talking to the Bureau if there was any money out there that was set aside for that. She told me no. I know Hava bought the election equipment, the tabulators, the printers. We bought one on our own, but it pretty much supplied all of our precincts. So I was gonna call Oakland County tomorrow and just check and say, hey, is there any money out there towards these computers? But that would be 3 new laptops we would need.
So if they say there's no money for it, then we have to go back to IT and get a price for that before. the
Yes,
fiscal
yes,
year.
and I would not, yes.
Okay.
So, but the good news is we can have the election on November 5th. When I first heard that, I wasn't in the office and I was like, oh. Nobody saw that coming, so. But anyway, so I guess somebody wanna,
Can I ask a question?
You can.
Doesn't the, getting our server up to date help along with, we just invested in a security for all our computer systems?
well, when it comes to,
I think security, are you thinking of stuff that we're doing?
Yeah.
IT right in the,
Right.
they're doing that for our systems. The election ones, I think, all run separate though, don't they? They're like
Oh,
completely.
no, that's what I'm saying, this quote, won't that help with the?
Oh,
the-
okay, sorry.
Our campus, yeah, our campus here, yeah.
well, yeah, I would think it would. But also too, we talked about the security level with the insurance policy and we
He's coming
have
out.
them looking into that. He will be coming out through Michigan Planners also. But this is all backed up. IT Right has said that, you know, we should be good to go. But on the off chance,
It's part of the problem. Everybody's kind of jumping on the security stuff,
Yeah.
and for good reason, because a couple of municipalities have been hacked, and then they're held ransom. And they want to be paid in Bitcoin or something where you can't trace them, right?
think about it.
And so the insurance provider for the township has said, we've got a package that's coming out, and originally Power Plan was going to make it available on our regular insurance as a rider pretty effectively. Then he called us last week, I think it was, and
Yes.
said, that looks like it's being delayed for a while, we're going to have to use something else in the meantime to get it going. And we talked to IT Right. They had a teletraining session that Patty and I sat in on that went through a host of, frankly, mumbo jumbo on things that they were doing inherently to try and stop it at their end. What I've suggested is when the agent gets out here, we have him and the IT rep,
Yeah.
IT Right rep, make sure we're not buying the same thing
Right.
twice from different ends. And so that meeting's coming up, but we'll take care of that too. Okay, so you need a motion for this.
Yeah, if we want
Do you
to.
want to make it and then somebody gets seconded since you have the.
Yeah, I can. So I'll motion to update the server in the township office at the price of $4,777.10.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Questions or comments from the board? Carrie, Money, would you take a roll call?
Gina Musarelli,
Yes.
Bob DiPalma,
Yes.
Patty Back,
Yes.
Jim Christopher.
Yes.
Okay, you're on a roll, okay. Next item on
Oh,
the
is
agenda is
it?
to discuss the
Oh, the
smart
smart
credits.
credits. Okay, so this is the smart credits. They come out for the smart buses, and we get a total amount of $5,680 of them. And what we've done in the past is we split it between the Brandon Township and the Village of Holly for the senior centers, because they use the smart buses to get them to the grocery, anywhere they need to go for the most part. So it'd be $2,840 to Brandon Township and $2,840 to the Village of Holly for the senior center buses. I guess that could be my motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
Absolutely. Second.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? With one missing, I only have to look at one.
I know it's
Okay,
Very well used.
Carrie, would you take a roll call on that?
Bob DiPalma,
Yes.
Patty Back,
Yes.
Jim Christopher,
Yes.
Gina Musarelli.
Yes.
This is just one thing I think I might want to interject here. It's not actually an agenda item, but I don't know if most of you remember about a year and a half ago before, when Brooks was still quite active, there was an attempt to put a rural transit authority millage in here, virtually in the whole county. And Brooks was pretty strong and adamant about saying, I just don't think Oakland County's getting much out of it. So we fought it and dropped out of it. It was going to be $1.5 million, which is basically 150% of what you pay to run your own community in a township, because they're all pretty much on 1 mil. The new county executive has already taken it on, that he's in favor of this and trying to put it through. So I'm just telling you, you need to kind of pay attention to the news and all that, because if this goes through, we will end up ultimately with another millage. You know, I get people that call me at tax time and say, what is this Art Institute millage, or what is this zoo millage? And, you know, you explain to them, yeah, I know, they got passed by the majority, and if it depends how they structure their request. Originally, what Brooks had set up was, if you didn't think you got much out of this transit millage, you could opt out of it. And so, frankly, up in the north end of Oakland County here, we get literally almost nothing out of it. To give you an example, $1.5 million tax will generate somewhere around $300,000 for the project, okay? And I think our total benefit, the last time somebody looked at it, I think was about $17,000. So, even if you're not good at math, you can figure out pretty quick, that's not likely to do us much good, and that's why Brooks fought it so vehemently and was out of it. Now, the new executive comes from Ferndale, and they're kind of for it at the southern end of the county, so I don't know how it will exactly get rolled out, but if they end up doing it where it's the majority of the county that votes for it and we all have to pay for it anyway, kind of like the zoo and the Art Institute, you could be looking at a tax increase coming down the pipe. So I'm just telling you that you might want to, when you hear that stuff on the news, listen to it, because it's in the works again right now. And I just thought this, these smart credits made me think about it, because it's transportation related. Okay, next item on the agenda is discuss the 2020 NOHAS pricing. I think you all got copies of the information from Whitney Callio at the county. It looks like the cost, when we get the final bid for the NOHAS program that we've been members of since it started in, I don't know, whatever that first plaque up there was, is going to go up with the renewal. And that's because the current provider of the NOHAS facilities that the county contracted for all of us to use, did not raise their price the last time. So for 3 years, it's been flat. And two things happen. One, recyclables have kind of gone down to almost nothing right now, especially with the tariff wars with China. They're not buying any of the recyclable junk, apparently. And so the cost for that stuff has gone way down that they can get out of it. And secondly, a lot of the recyclables that you have to get rid of, which are like electronics related, CRTs and TVs, you used to be able to, take them in, I think it was Best Buy, and they would take them for you. Well, now you gotta pay to get rid of them every time you wanna get rid of them. So the cost has gone up. The provider said, I'm not gonna hold the price a fourth year. When we bid on it, it's going to have an increase, and it's probably gonna go up quite a bit. Typically, what happens with us and most of the participants that are in the No-Haz program is, just so that there's some buy-in and it doesn't get grossly abused, the residents that we have that go to it, and for most of the participants, pay a $10 fee. The township really picks up the rest of the cost, because it's in the range of 35 to 50 bucks a car. So, there's no action today. We'll be getting a proposal from them shortly. I just wanted to give you a heads up that it's going to have an increase this year, and that's why that package is in your package today. So it's just a discussion item for you, but it will go up. And again, I guess we could decide if we want to change it, but I kind of feel the $10 fee does the right thing. It stops some people from just arbitrarily bringing tons of junk to us, and it has a little bit of buy-in from them. It's a small fraction of what the actual cost is. And if we don't do it, we start getting phone calls from like, I don't know what this is, but there's 4 or 5 buckets of it at the corner of Wildwood and McGinnis or something, And once we started getting in No-Haz, we probably eliminated 99% of those kinds of calls. So I think it's worth being in to, especially with all the state land we have out here, people sometimes throw stuff in the state land and figure, it's out the boondocks, nobody knows. And then ultimately I have to call Chief Mason and ask him if the guys can go pick up some stuff that's laying on the road somewhere. But it's worked pretty well for us, so I think I would still recommend us being in the program, and we have been in it from the very beginning, one of the founding members in it. I just wanted you to know that the price increase is coming, so you aren't surprised when you see it. Next item is to discuss the donation for Brandon Historical Society for the blacksmith shop. Yeah, you think you have that one too?
Yes, Mr. Sutton came in, and up where the mill is, the old mill, they built a blacksmith shop. They're still working on it. They cannot do blacksmithing inside the building. They have to do it outside. So they want to put, he explained it a bit, like some bricking and, a fire pit, foundry, and do all that. And then, they use it for demonstrations and things. I know they use the school for the kids in the area. And anyway, he was in asking for donations. They had the money to build the building and all, but they didn't have fully funding to do the outside area so they could actually do the blacksmithing. So he asked if we would put it on our agenda, bring it to the board, and see if we would be interested in making a donation.
Do we have an idea what?
Well,
Brandon and
yes, the village and Groveland Township pledged $2,000 to it, so.
Each or together?
No, each, yeah, was my understanding, yes. Yeah, I actually made my husband stop at one of these over the summer, because I had the littles with me. He wasn't happy, but they were, so now I can just take them uptown.
Okay.
So there we go.
Do you want to
Maybe,
propose a donation?
yeah. What do you think? What's your thoughts? Do you want to go with what Brandon and the village
Good
did?
neighbors with them, I think it's good stuff. I know our
Okay.
residents go down to that, you see them all the time. I've been in it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
If you go to Ortonville Days, they usually have it opened and they show you some very interesting stuff in there from time to time, so.
I think it's open
I
on
think it's-
Saturdays too, quite.
10 to 2.
That's what I thought.
I think it's a good project.
Okay, so I motion that we make one-time donation of $2,000 to the historical blacksmith shop in Brandon Township.
Is there a
By the
second to
old
that?
mill.
I can second that.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, Carrie, would you take a roll call on that?
Patty Back,
Yes.
Jim Christopher,
Yes?
Gina Musarelli,
Yes.
Bob McCombs.
Yes. Okay, this is the meeting for donations. The next one
Yeah.
is yours too, Patty, of Brandon
Well-
Haunted Hallways.
Yeah, the Brandon Haunted Hallways, they too are looking for some funds. This is a program for small children. Is anybody familiar with it? On October 28th, you could go to the high school, Brandon High School, and the kids can trick or treat. So they're looking for money donations to buy candy and decorations and so on and so forth. So we actually really just got this the other day, but I thought it was worthwhile to put in here and see, every little bit helps,
Did you
so.
find out what their donations were?
I did not get a chance to call Brandon.
This is basically to buy candy and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I, only because I'm affiliated with the Brandon Groveland Youth Assistant, I know they donated 200 to them for it, so, but I
That's a
was,
pretty good hunk of candy.
yeah, and
The dentist will be happy.
yeah, this is the third, what are they calling this, third annual? It's really kind of a nice thing we've done, so. Grades, pre-K to 5, 5th grade, welcome. So,
Well,
whatever you think.
I don't know, that seems like a reasonable amount to me. Again, I like it when they ask us to donate on some of these things, because I think it's good for the whole community.
Yes,
This is a much better approach than when they tell us, we want you to pay whatever the millage is, but you can't vote on it. Those are the ones that I get most upset about.
and they're, you know, in the
When you
letter,
ask, we're pretty accommodating. When you tell us, it doesn't work so well.
and in the letter, it says, you know, that we'll be, you know, it'll be recognized that Groveland supported, and, you know, we're always welcome to visit our school night of the event and take a tour. I know they redid a lot of it, I haven't been in there since it was finished, but,
Okay.
so.
You want to make the motion?
I think Jim was going
You want to make
to.
it?
Sure.
Yeah, Jim's gonna
I'd
make
like to
that
make a
motion.
motion that we contribute up to $200 to the third annual Haunted Hallways event.
Okay, so a second?
I'll support.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Carrie, would you take a roll call again?
Jim Christopher,
Yes.
Gina Musarelli,
Yes.
Bob DiPalma,
Yes.
Patty Back.
Yes.
Okay, this next one, I think this one's mine. Oakland County is getting ready to do a bicentennial celebration. And part of what they've suggested is, don't laugh on this, everybody should be planting an oak tree to mark it next year. And I think that's great, although we do have quite a few trees out here. About 8,000 acres of them. And Patty and I were discussing this today, said, well, where do you think we would put the tree? And I said, Chief, you let me know, but we kind of thought maybe when we put the station and the training center over there.
Right after we cut all those other oaks down?
We will plant one for part of the landscape to go along with this, if that's all right. And they've got a deal where you can go to a vendor and get some trees that are pretty reasonable thing. And I guess if they're gonna go through the entire 61 communities in Oakland County and kind of do it, it's probably not a bad thing to do. And where we're putting the stuff, we pretty well defoliated it before we build it, so. I would guess, I think this is all right. It's up to the board. If you want me, I will get back to the people putting this project together and let them know that, yes, we want to do one next year when they're doing the commemorative stuff for it. And then we'll put it someplace over by Mavis, new fire station area.
So this is a proclamation form, so I
Yep.
will make a motion to approve the proclamation to celebrate the 200th birthday of Oakland County with symbolic of oak trees.
And can you
200 oak tree planting and be
And can you
one.
include that we will buy an oak tree from this program?
Yes, and we will buy an oak tree from this program.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, Carrie, will you take a roll call on that one?
Gina Musarelli,
Yes.
Bob DiPalma,
Yes.
Patty Back,
Yes.
Jim Christopher.
Yes.
Okay. And then the next one, this one's yours again, Patty's item K is discuss Teresa bills.
This is Teresa Bills. Teresa, our right-hand gal here. She's interested in doing some education, so I wanted to bring it to the board to discuss Teresa enrolling in the Township Governance Academy, which is the program through the Michigan Township Association. And it's a program that you don't have a deadline to finish, you know, you do get to an end. I I've done it, and I had graduated and have my plaque and all, and it's very informational. You learn a lot of things about townships and just in general what, you know, you need to know. It's pretty informative. So I thought it would be worthwhile to bring to the board, and we would pay for this out of the clerk education line item.
So that means Teresa's staying?
Well, I don't think Teresa was ever going. Not sure what Teresa does sometimes, but Teresa, yeah, and this isn't something like she won't be going like, you know, every week and once a month. They put a lot of them online now. You can do them online, and which makes it much
That's my preference.
more. Teresa likes online. So,
Patty, what's the expenditure?
well, it's $30 to join, to get the program going, and then it's usually like what you and I have attended, like $159. It might even be cheaper with the online courses. I didn't have any that had come across right now for the online, but I do know they're online. And like I said, it isn't something that she, you know, has to zoom right through, but, you know,
But it's good stuff
to
to
do it
have.
here and there, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you want to make the motion?
Yep, I'll motion that we approve enrolling Teresa Bills into the Township Governance Academy through the Michigan Township Association.
So second,
I'll second it.
any questions from the board?
I guess I should add on that, just, and that it'll be taken out of the clerk's education line
Yeah, yeah.
item.
Okay. And you made the second, right? That's okay, we do the modification, correct?
Yes.
Okay. No other questions? Carrie, would you take a roll call?
Bob DiPalma?
Yes.
Patty Back?
Yes.
Jim Christopher?
Yes.
Gina Musarelli?
Yes.
Okay, next item, L, discuss the township office on November the 5th. Patty, this was yours.
Okay, so last few times we've had elections, we've closed the office to normal business, only for election business. I would like to do that again coming up in November for the election, as the new ruling is that you can walk in and register to vote the day of the election. So someone has to be in here all day long, which is fine, someone's usually here anyway. But it will just be, the office will be closed to everything else except election issues. So I guess my motion is to close the office to all business other than election on November 5th.
So your second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Okay.
No, sorry.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, that's done. I have nothing on the agenda today for resolutions. We're moving to miscellaneous, and the first item on that would be the Holly Area Youth, so. Oh, Shelley doesn't have, but she's not here today, so we'll get that for this meeting. Next is the Brandon Groveland Youth Assistance. Carrie, you want to cover anything on that?
I did not, we both
We
were not
didn't
able
make
to
it.
go.
Been busy,
Okay.
too busy.
Nothing to report. Planning Commission, well, Dale just left, so I can tell you
Light
that,
on this, yeah.
I can tell you on the next agenda meeting, one of the items we're going to have is, we want to use the vehicle in the state of Michigan that's available to allow off-road vehicles on a public road, but the only road we want to do it on is Shields Road, which is 0.12 miles long, and it's where the ORB Park entrance gate is off of Dixie Highway. And the reason for that is, when we developed the township's property in the area where the gully run was, we need to have some vehicle way, a way for the vehicles there to be able to get to the ORB Park. And so, at some point in time, whether they come across Barry's property where the recycling center's going, or if we end up, which we're working on, trying to get the rights to the old abandoned Warden Road, it interfaces on that 1/10 of a mile of Shields Road. in order to make it legal to drive from the township's property across a few hundred feet of that Shields Road into that gate, you have to have an option that says it's okay to use an ORV vehicle on it. We're not gonna have them running through the township because it's very dangerous out here to try and do that. But we need to be able to cross a few hundred feet there to get into the ORV park. So at the next meeting, we should have some language for us to do the adoption on the ordinance. It's kind of a laborious process. I think it has to be sent to every municipality in the township. When I asked Ben Delrico to get it ready for tonight's meeting, he mistakenly sent me something for an MDOT road, and I said, well, Shields Road is not an MDOT road. It's barely a county road. It's really the entry point for what used to be a wandering haul road into all the gravel pits that were back there over the last 50 years. So that should be on the next agenda. We'll have something on that, but just so you know, that's what we're working on. And that's, I think I mentioned that at the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission's pretty well ready on the master plan, and so I think there's nothing really new that I'm aware of that was at that meeting other than those items we just discussed. So that's it for planning. For BZA, since you just got off of that?
There was no meeting.
No meeting, okay. For the supervisors, I got a couple of things to make you aware of. We did have our first, what we think will be our first annual Dixie Byway Car Show on October the 5th. And I'm happy to say, I was nervous. It ended up being a huge success. We had close to 200 cars and motorcycles and ORVs that showed up. The Mount Holly parking lot worked perfect. It did not rain, although it was kind of nippy in the morning when I got there to get it ready at about 40 degrees. But it was a huge success. We had a lot of comments from people that said it was great, they loved it, want to know if we're going to do it every year. I have talked to John Noyes at the Oakland County Parks because they have signed a contract with Mount Holly to lease Mount Holly's parking lot for the summer going forward. And October the 5th and the days before that would be in that envelope that they lease it for. So I said, since we want to have the show again next year, we have some ideas that I actually think we could get this up to maybe 250, 300 cars and some multiple food vendors, which is one of the areas where a couple of them copped out just before they were supposed to be there. We're supposed to be 3 or 4, and then one showed up with hot dogs and ran out. So, you know, we think we can fix those things. We think we can get more sponsors because we know we had a good turnout the first time. People had a great time, and so we're going to try and do it next year, but I'm going to see if we can possibly move it up earlier. And John Noyes had suggested he would go back to the county commissioners, and he's in support of the idea. He wants to see if they'll agree to let us use Mount Holly's parking lot again for that. It's the perfect place because most of the people with collector cars and motorcycles don't want to park it on grass for fear that it gets dirty or a bike falls over. So the Mount Holly's parking lot worked great, but I still have to have some follow-up meetings with George Cullis, the Holly supervisor, and Richard from the Chamber of Commerce to look at a couple of different alternative dates. You know, you don't want to conflict with Back to the Bricks and Flint. You don't want to conflict with the Woodward Cruise. Can't do it late in the Renaissance Festival cycle because they get a lot of traffic in the last 3 or 4 meetings. So we've got to try and figure out a couple of days to see if they would work better. I think we were just really fortunate that it did not rain on October the 5th and it went off okay. But the plans would be to try and make it bigger, get some more corporate sponsors to cover 100% of the cost and do a little better job on some of the awards. But overall, I was tickled pink with it. And I was nervous at 8 o'clock when the only car in that parking lot was my little green Fiero. So it went pretty well. That's one of the things. There's also been some general discussion in the past. The Oakland County folks had indicated they would like us to consider whether or not we would let them put a parking lot on the township's 88 acres that they could use when they're not using Mount Holly's. And I think there's a couple of things kind of running in the background. If you understand how this park is set up, it's technically owned by the state of Michigan as the 105th, I think it is, DNR park. But there's a lease and a management contract with Oakland County. But most of these contracts have outs on them. And then the county has a lease with Mount Holly for their parking lot. I had a meeting today with Sean from the Holly Rec area. talking about the fact that we might be willing to sell or swap some land that they own on Dixie Highway for a piece of the inside part of our township's 88 acres that would facilitate a parking structure for them. And the conversation was pretty interesting. They said, I could see why the county would be interested in that. I mean, basically, if the park goes really well and for whatever reason, somewhere down the road in the future, Mount Holly decides I don't want to rent you the parking lot, they're kind of stuck. And I said to Sean, they could take the property they own next to the Groveland Oaks. They had at one point considered making that parking and putting a tunnel underneath Dixie to get in. But he said, I can see why they don't want to do that either, because the county doesn't own the park. And if something happens and for whatever reason the DNR is not happy with the deal in the future and says, we don't want you to manage it anymore, we'll do it ourselves, they could end up having a parking lot to nothing that they own, right? So what I discussed with Sean was if we could put the right kind of deal together, I would be willing to have the board look at the possibility of taking some acreage in the middle of that where we didn't have anything really locked down and swapping that for some frontage on Dixie Highway. And it turns out that they actually had a color map they gave us today which shows the different 5 or 6 or 7 programs the state of Michigan has used to acquire all the state land that's out here in Groveland. And there's 3 ways you can get property from the DNR. One is if you have something they want, they'll swap you some land for something you want, okay? Which makes it easier because there's really no money necessarily changing hands. It's kind of how much of this do I get for how much of that? The other method is no, you can't get it, which is almost impossible to get. And then the third category is hell no, you can't get it. There's no way to get it, okay? And fortunately, the piece of the frontage that they own, roughly half of it that's on Dixie Highway towards the ORV park up at Grange Hall Road, is the part that you might be able to, or you might be able to spot for. The southern half of it, which is the part we would be least interested in, is the hell no, you can't ever have it, okay? So Sean is going to talk to the folks up in Lansing that did the purchase on the park to see if they're interested in pursuing that, and I have no idea where this is going to go. But if it's like any of the other negotiations we've had on the ORV park, it could be 2 or 3 years in the discussion stage, but I'm just giving you a heads up that it might be something for us to look at, because I think from our perspective, I even told Sean, we don't want to take Dixie Highway and commercialize it like Waterford, Dixie is, where it's just one business after another. There's a couple spots in there that we've talked about that we think would make excellent scenic pull-offs to the lake and stuff. But we would like to see some of that property available for support functions to the recreational activities out here. And so I said I'd even be happy if the state just said they wanted to sell a little bit of the frontage and make a buttload of money on it, because I think it'd be good for everybody. But I'm not sure where it'll end up. I just want to let you know that discussion started this morning in my office, and we'll see if it goes anywhere. The other one is the sewer possibilities, and that is, as we look to develop the township's property, depending what goes on that, it either has to have an on-site treatment plant for whatever gets developed on the frontage on Grange Hall and I-75, or we have to see if they'll extend the sewer line from Genesee County down to this intersection and into our property. What's happening is there's a whole series of bits and pieces. If everybody plays together nice, could probably make the sewer line work, because Shannon Industries is going to get tied into Genesee Sewer District. They have a project to tie in from the remainder of the capacity that's in that Woodfield subdivision, and that one we have that we're covering up just north of, what road is that? Just south of county line or whatever it is. Yeah, McGinnis. Anyway, or not McGinnis, but just south of the county line. The problem is that sewer line only has enough capacity to handle Shannon Industries, which is that big fastener company that went in Holly. We met with the owner at the engineering firm, and he's a very accommodating guy, and said, look, as long as it doesn't screw up Shannon's plans to put the other buildings in and hold up my plans, I'll forego tying into the existing line for the good of the community to help fund the larger line that would have to come all the way down to our intersection. In addition, the Genesee County Drain Commissioner has about $4 million of funding left over from an Army Corps of Engineer projects that he said I could make available for this project that would qualify for it. And so if you start looking at, Genesee has 4 million of the project, and Shannon's got to put a couple million into the other tie-in if they go with that, they could divert it to this, and we start looking at what's happening, you could get to the point where you might have darn near the whole project covered from a few participants. But in order to do that, the next stage we have to do is get a rough preliminary estimate of what the residential unit equivalents would be for the total capacity, the size of the pipe for the sewer line, because they're in increments. I think it's like, 12, 18, 24, whatever. And we need to figure out how much capacity you need to know how big the pipe is. Then Genesee can tell you, I actually picking a number right now. I actually think it's 7 million instead of 10 million or instead of 4 million. And so we're trying to get to that stage. A developer approached me last week about looking at our 88 acres and what they would like to propose on it. And so I said, yeah, great, give me an idea, tell me what you think, we can talk. And I called them back after the sewer meeting and said, look, I need that conceptual plan that you have, because the only one I have now is the one I showed all of you that we got from the county's economic development people. I need something that I can take to an engineering firm and say, this is kind of what we think will be on that property, and can you do the residential equivalent units for the sewer sizing on it? And so I have another meeting coming up with them, I think it's the 29th of this month, to see when, they had some more questions they had, to see when they can give us an idea of what that proposed overview of the property would look like in their mind. And then my intention is to take that with George back to Row Engineering and see, okay, can you start sizing it? Because the rest of the usage up and down Dixie Highway is pretty easy to identify from the facilities that are there. And if you just took the Dixie Byway and said eventually we would expect some more of those parcels to be some kind of commercial, they can come up with a number that's fairly good for sizing purposes. That's going to allow us to know whether or not doing the sewer there would even be worthwhile, or whether the township would have to actually put some sort of treatment facility on there. And if it's a treatment facility, I think the only way we would want to do that is if the township operated it, so we made sure that whoever's using the property is paying the full cost of it. And the reason we would want to do it is typically what happens on sewer systems, like the ones in the mobile home parks, they put them in for those developments, but if they ever go belly up, they default to the township, whether you want them or not. And so then that's how townships get stuck with, you need $1 million to fix the sewer system on a mobile home that went in that was defunct, right? We don't want to have that happen, so we would rather be involved in the implementation of this, even if we did it through Oakland County's water department, just so that we know whatever goes in is meeting the standards, is properly being maintained, and the full cost of it's being covered by the participants that would be using it. So that's a long way of saying this is a kind of a lengthy study, but there are so many little bits and pieces along the way that look like if the moon and the stars line up right, they could all work to the advantage of the township. And of course, the benefit to the township of putting a sewer line in would be we wouldn't have to worry about doing the treatment plant, and your options for what you might want to see on that property could be developed a lot easier and better if there was actually a sewer feeding the facility. So it's very preliminary. I don't know if it's going anywhere, but that's where those things stand right now. And I think I already told you about the ORB and the ordinance for the road that we're working on. The last thing I want to mention is the census numbers are going to be tabulated next March. They're making a real push, and Patty and I have been the contacts for this township, working with the county on how do you get people involved. And I can tell you one of our goals is we got hit really hard in two different areas in the 2010 census. Our 2020 census was about 6,150 residents, okay? Our 2010 census is the one we operate under now, which is I think 5,474. We lost about 600 residents in the last census, and that's because after what people call the Great Recession, we had about 140 or so foreclosures in the township, and typically we will have like 2 or 3. And the 2 mobile home parks in the far corners both got decimated. those people got hit so hard in that economic turndown that many of them literally packed up their personal effects, put it in their car one night, and just drove away and left like that. So you put all that together, that's how we lost 600 people. That 600 people cost the township roughly $40,000 a year for 10 years, okay? I would like to try and get as much of that back as possible, because I know the foreclosures are pretty well gone, and I know this mobile home park went into bankruptcy after that. The new people moved in, put a bunch of new units in, cleaned it up, and I think it's pretty well filled now, I think, isn't it, Gary? That one's pretty full. This one down at the other end, which most of that's all in Springfield, but a piece of that one is in Groveland. I think it's about 230 units. The same thing, people, it went bankrupt, new company bought it, and they're starting to clean it up. So I hope they get it cleaned up by March so that when the census stuff goes out, if people respond to it, and it's important because if you don't, the money that should be coming to Groveland Township to do things like fix roads and that, ends up going to some other community. I mean, last time I looked, every head count we got was roughly, I think, about $89 a year. So we don't want to lose that many people. I would love it if we could even get back to the number we had in the year 2000 without any additional growth. I don't know if that's possible. SEMCOG does the forecasting for all of Southeast Michigan's municipalities. In SEMCOG's, and you'll see it in the master plan when you get it, it's in the draft. SEMCOG says that by the year 2040, they think we're going to be up to 5,830, which is still smaller than we were in the year 2000. So if people think we're having like explosive growth, we're not. And we're going to be lucky to get back to what we were 20 years ago. And the growth rate on the new homes before the economy collapsed was about 32 homes a year. And the last time I looked at it here, I know Carrie's going to pull up the figures for the last year, but it's roughly averages about 8 homes a year. So it's a quarter of the growth we had, far fewer people than we had 20 years ago, and if we're lucky, we'll get close to that, but SEMCOG thinks we're still going to be quite a few short of what it was, and it makes a difference. So one of the things that Patty and I think we have to focus on, because I actually think the participation rate on that session we went to at Oakland County showed that our residents tend to be at least 80% responding, which is considered fairly good, okay? They highlighted communities that had abnormally low response rates, like 50 or 60%. But I think where we need to focus on is, as we get closer to March, going to the 2 mobile home parks and trying to meet with any of their development group gatherings that they have, and maybe some TP-type signs that you put up in that saying, please respond to the census, because if you don't, the money that would have been in this township to do things goes to some other township. It's just that simple. And we need all of it we can get, because we've gone for 20 years, basically, or 10 years without it. Yeah.
What about having a canvassing campaign?
They do that. Part of what they do, just the way that the census people work, is they do it a couple of different ways this year. For the first time, they're trying to simplify some of it. So they're going to have it where you can do it on a phone, you can do it online, and what we intend to do here, the other thing is we're going to put it out on the sign and do a video and tell you if you don't know how to do it or you don't have access to a computer to do it, you can come in here and we'll set you up with a computer and let you fill the census out that way.
Or
And
even
then-
like teepees and local businesses.
Yeah, that's the
and,
kind of
you
stuff
know,
we're
all,
talking
like all businesses, just to get the word out.
Yep, that's it, what we intend to do with a number of them. But beyond that, after they send it all out, if they find out there are addresses that they know haven't responded, that's when they start sending the canvassers out. So where we think we get the biggest bang for the buck is if we don't get the response we're hoping for from the mobile home parks, we will want them to hit, and we've already talked to the county on this, we want them to hit them particularly hard, and then Patty and I will do some sessions to try and make those people, because I think that's where you're likely to have a potentially lower response rate. Our township itself, the proper here, tends to be pretty good about responding to it, and they're actually trying to make it easier so that, like I said, you could do it online, you can do it via phone, or you can do it when you mail in the thing if they send it to you, and then if that doesn't work, they're going to try and canvass them. But I suspect we'll have pretty good response within the core of the township. I really think it's the two mobile home parks we have to hit hard. For one, a lot of the residents in there are fairly new, may have never even been in a survey before, and if they're lower to moderate income, which has been the history in those two parks, sometimes those people are more apprehensive that if I respond to the census, I think somebody else gets my information, and they really don't. They're very adamant about not having that happen. So I think what we have to do is make sure they understand it doesn't go anywhere else. And that's where I think we get the biggest bang for it. So you'll see more of it. I've done it on a couple of videos, added, you need to make sure you comply to the census. Patty and I have been going to some of the sessions that the county puts on, and we intend to do more of that, but the crunch time is going to be between now the end of the year here and March, because that's pretty much when it gets done. And if you don't get in that census, that's it probably for another 10 years. You're just not going to get the money.
Very short time. And it's complete count, so if you've got a brand new baby, it gets counted. If you aren't a citizen, you get counted, because you're living in the area.
So
And the information is protected.
you may see
7
census
years.
on that sign a whole bunch of
Yeah.
times over the next few months. Okay. That's all I had. Patty, did you have anything else?
Well, I was just gonna say, Teresa and I, all the AV ballots that we had have been sent out, and we've received quite a few back already, so that's been nice. Public accuracy is going to be October 30th here, 11, is that what?
I believe it's 11.
Holly High School, I was just gonna put a little plug in, they sent these. This is their craft show, so I'll put it on the counter, and it supports the senior all-night graduation party. So I thought, that's a nice thing. The OCC, it's just a renewal, we'll see how the voting works out when people can come in and register that day, so. And then Mike Mueller, his office called, when I returned the call to him, he would like to come October 28th, I believe it was, for like a town hall from 11 to 1. They asked for that time. And, we told them that would be great.
Just so that everybody understands how that works, this is, most of the state reps like to go out into their area and talk to residents and just answer questions that they might have about the state. They might, what's the latest on road funding or whatever. They usually try to do it at a township office because everybody knows where they are. The whole process of what they're doing, though, it's arranged by the state rep. It's nothing that the township does, except when he says, "Can I use the table in your room?" We go, "Sure." So the whole process, it's not a board meeting like this. It's really a chance to sit down and you want to ask them about SISMA or something. You can ask them what they might know about that, or any of those other kinds of, road funding where that discussion's going. They can fill you in on that, but it's really their efforts at trying to come out and talk to some of the end users. It's not something that the township per se sets up. They decide when they want to do it, where they want to do it. Sometimes they do it in a big boy restaurant. It's totally up to them. Our involvement in it is simply to say, if you want to use our office, just like we let the county use the training room at the fire station for their park meetings, it's the same thing.
But they contact us, and we did it, I think it was about 2 years ago. Dave Robertson came in, and it really is kind of nice because small group, but you can pretty much ask whatever you're wondering, and he was pretty open on sharing. So.
What's the turnout average for residents? Because I can't surmise that many people would take time off work.
That day,
You're probably right.
no, that is true,
Yeah.
from 11 to 1, I agree. But again, that's what they wanted. But we had quite a few here. I mean, maybe a little bit less than what's all of you put together right now, but we had quite a few. The teachers was a hot topic at the time. So we had quite a few teachers that were retired that had saw it and came in asking questions and wanted to know things. So.
He's really good at doing one a month. It's in his newsletter, and he does rotate them pretty well, and that would be something that would be awesome to bring up, is can you do an evening one? Because I'm sure he would.
Yes.
I'm sure the
he would.
attendance would be
I
much better.
could contact him and I'd be happy to contact
That'd be
him
awesome.
and see if he would be
You know, just-
interested.
If you maybe do, and if you can adjust it, delete it.
Yeah,
Maybe
Maybe.
after-
What are we looking at, 7, 6?
like 6 to 8 would be great.
All right.
Now, would the confirmation, once you get that all worked out, would that be on the website, or how would we know?
Yeah, we'll post it. I mean,
I can, or we could post it on the sign too.
Yeah,
Let me know.
I think I had Brent put it on the
From-
sign. I can't recall. I
Yeah, I
didn't.
did.
Yeah.
When we know that stuff, we do. Like, there's another one that's gonna be coming up. They're finishing up the preliminary engineering for the Barron Road paving project, so, and I can't remember the name off, the day off the top of my head, but in November, they're gonna come out here and put the drawings out, so if people wanna ask about the project, what it's gonna look like when they do it in 2021, you'll be able to do that, and we'll post that on the sign once we got it all locked down.
Yeah. No, I'll give him a ring tomorrow. I've got his number and, I forget what they call it. He's got a couple of young guys that work for him, you know, that make all his calls and his calendar, so.
His insurance.
His intern, that's right. So I'll get a hold of Mike, the intern.
I'm pretty sure the Barron Road one is loaded in the computer. I think Brent did it last time, because he can set them up and it won't start till it gets
Oh, right.
close to wherever the date is, you know.
No,
All right,
I-
that's all I had.
My boss.
Shelley is excused for this meeting today, so if there's nothing else. Any questions or comments from the board before we move to the fire? Yeah.
Just going back to the car show, I had a suggestion. You might want to also check with things like the Frankenmuth Car Fest, so it doesn't conflict with that. Nats North in Kalamazoo, so it doesn't conflict with that.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to let you know that Tom's Car, the Michigan Hot Rod,
Mhm.
which started Autorama however many decades ago that was, they've been very successful. So if you had any questions or wanted help with anything,
Okay.
I'm going to offer him up, even though I normally don't do that without checking with him
His,
first.
his,
but-
his ears are burning now, right?
I'm sure they are, but he'd be more than happy, because if you can get it out to the NHRA,
Yeah.
you'd have
Yeah,
even more.
we actually had some radio time spots too that we bought for that from some donations that we had. So the biggest thing I gotta find out first is when do the rest of the guys think there's 2 or 3 dates that we can do, and see if we can get a confirmation out of the county first. But then I'll take you up on that. We'll see. No, because we don't want it to conflict with the other stuff or nobody will show. It turns out when we did our show, the reason I was so pleased, actually the 4-H Fairgrounds had a show the same day. So I'll bet you we'd have had another 50 or 100 cars. But the thing that I think helped the most was, early on, I went and talked to the Flaming Pistons in Brandon, and I think I got about 100 guys to sign up the day I told them we were going to do it, before I even knew for sure what the day was. And then when we got close to the show, if they gave me a phone number, I spent 2 or 3 days just calling, and if I got their voicemail, I said, it's just a friendly reminder, the car show's October the 5th, and I actually think that made quite a bit of difference, because, you know, I had people that I knew, I recognized them by the car they had. They said they had, you know, there was a lady with a 61 Buick, and I remember chatting with her for a while, and she showed up, and it's the only Buick like that in the show. So I think that helps a little bit. Some of the car clubs actually, half a dozen of the guys get together regularly for breakfast in the morning. So a couple of them, I was calling them, and the guy would go, yeah, I'm here with my buddies, we're all coming, don't worry, there's about 8 of us here, you know. So while I was nervous at the beginning, it got going, and then they just kept on coming in pretty much all day. But I think what we'll do next year is probably shorten it from 10 to 2 instead of 9 to 3. It seems like after about 2, a lot of them start wanting to go home anyway. And for them to start having the cars come in and show at 9, Bob's got to get there at 8. It was awful cold. I'll take them up on that when we get a little closer to figuring
It might generate a whole lot of, attendance.
Yeah.
Another suggestion I heard about was a sign up by the road.
Yeah, and we talked about that. We're gonna get some banners and a couple of the business. What we really want to do is not have it just to bring awareness to the Dixie Byway concept, which is what we used it to kick it off. Because this all started originally just because I have so many people that come into the office when I drive one of my old cars or an old motorcycle and say, whose is it? And that always leads to discussion. I just thought, it'd be nice. And then the Chamber of Commerce jumped in and said, let's use it to kick the byway off. And so that's kind of how it got going at the last minute. But we got quite a few ideas we've jotted down that we think we can incorporate and make it more a bigger event going forward. But first we got to pin down a couple of dates and get a confirmation from the county. But then the banners was one of them. In fact, some of the businesses, I think, would sponsor even a much larger amount of money if we had some of their banners up. Because what we did, I don't know if anybody saw, but we sold T-shirts too that said First Annual Dixie Byway. And on the back were all the sponsors that helped make the show available. So we're trying to give them some incentive, that this is not only good just for the township, but it's good for their businesses too. And the banners is one of the things we talked about too. And then we started thinking we need to get some pylons and a few other things. But yeah, we kind of learned on the first one. I was just flabbergasted that it went as well as it did, really. Okay. No other comments? We'll close this meeting and move on to the fire board meeting. So a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Is it second? Second. Any questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. We're all going to reconvene, Kevin, for the fire board meeting. It's the show meeting. We're all here.
Thank
Better
you.
roll.
For the month of September, we ended up with 114 calls. Last year, that same period, we had 77 calls. The year before that, we had 125. So picked back up a little bit. Beginning of October, we ended up with 756 calls for the year. Yeah, we're at 784, I believe, right now. So I think we'll end up at 900, just like we predicted. A couple of administrative things here. The parking lot, we finished seal coating that.
Yeah, and it looks good, guy.
Thank you. I had a lot of help from the people, and took a lot longer than we thought it would, but we were blocked by the weather for a few times and just availability. Project we're looking at now for doing for Station 2 is putting gutters up. As you know, in the past we've had some damage from icicles, the sword of Damocles that come off that building.
It's kind of dangerous walking out.
And Alpha 7's got several dings on it from that. So we're looking at putting that out. Something we've talked about for Station 2 for like 15 years, but we're just looking into that. Engine 2's door, Lieutenant Nicholson
He did a
did
nice
some
job
body work
fixing
on
it
that
today.
and painted it. It looked really good. And
Did a good
he was a
job.
little upset with himself about there's a couple of pieces of dust in it, but it looks great. And
Just nobody's going to believe this. Tell them what a door shell for a quad cab fire engine cost. One door shell.
I think it was $8,000. That's not painted, and I think it was 14 grand to have it painted and marked the way we had it. So it was outrageous.
It must be made out of gold.
With platinum trim is what
Yeah.
we figured. And then on brush 1, we got the motor, a used motor and transmission. Lieutenant Nicholson took that all apart, and he's got it running now, and I think he said he got the kick down cable
Yeah, 'cause
working
it was
properly.
shit, right?
Yeah, so I think it's ready to go just in time to drain the water out, so we don't need it for brush trucks right now. So that's some of the administrative things. For the month, we did 56 transports, 4 assist invalids. I think that's a little bit low. I think I did at least 4 of those, so there must have been more than that. We had 7 PIs, 5 fires, and that's including vehicle fires and everything else. And we had toned out for 4 tree downs, but I bet you we're probably closer to 12 for the month on that. And as we've talked in the past, we don't get a number for every one of those.
And I didn't think it was all that windy, but I'm amazed at how many.
It rained a lot though, and that softened the ground. And we could have 3 in one day. Matter of fact, I know we had 3 in one day, so that's, kind of where we were at. First thing on the agenda is I'd like to recommend hiring Stacy Millar for the safer position that was vacated by Joe Keane. As you know, he took a job in Shelby Township. So Stacy, we took a test, and it was just her and Jeff Burdess that took the test, and by unanimous decision we picked Stacy. So I'd like to recommend her hiring to fill that vacancy.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we hire Stacy Moran to the safer position vacated by Joe King. I'll second that.
Questions or comments from the board? Take a roll call vote, if you would.
Patty Back,
Yes.
Jim Christopher,
Yes.
Gina Musarelli,
Yes.
Bob DePalma.
Yes. Thank you, Stacy. Welcome.
Another subject that we've been working on for several months now, and we're trying to get it through, but is medical coverage for the full-time personnel, and talking to the reps that we've been working with, January 1st is big changes to the program, and they recommended and we concurred that it wouldn't make sense to give everyone insurance now just for next month to renegotiate and make changes. So what I'd like to recommend that in order to help the full-time people pay for their insurance, and we've talked about this, and this was recommended by the same representatives, that we pay the max of what the state will allow divided by the 12 per month. So basically the difference of what we would be paying for the medical insurance to the full-time firefighters, so that help offset the cost of what they're paying now for insurance.
Okay, and that would be effective for any firefighter that's on the payroll as of what
The
day?
full-time.
As of what day?
Today, I guess.
Oh, okay. I'm just asking.
I haven't really looked at that very closely, but it's in the budget. And,
No, the reason I'm asking, I mean, we have somebody that's left. I don't want to
Right.
be sending checks to people that don't work here anymore. That's why I'm asking.
correct.
I just have a question about that. So the budget was approved in April.
Mhm.
Our family, my family alone has paid over $10,000 in premiums since this health budget was approved back in April. So if you make it effective today, I think that's screwing the full-time guys out of 6 months worth of premium costs that the township approved in April.
I look at the other way, we could be waiting till January to do it, so.
Okay, you need a motion.
I guess.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I can recommend paying supplemental medical pay until medical coverage starts in January at a max of the state divided by 12 for the full-time firefighters in Groveland Township.
Sir, second to that?
I'll support.
Okay, any questions or comments? Carrie, will you take a roll call?
Jim Christopher,
Yes.
Gina Musarelli,
Yes.
Bob DiPalma.
Yes.
Patty Back.
Yes.
Okay, Kevin, next item?
I'd like to recommend promoting Russell Adelholt to sergeant. He's been in the department for several years now. He's one of our lead responders. Obviously, he works full-time, so you can usually count on him to show up in the evening calls or on the weekends. So we'd like to recommend promoting him to sergeant.
Okay. Someone want to make that motion?
I'm happy to make the motion to promote Russell Adderhall to sergeant.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Carrie, would you take a roll call?
Gina Musarelli,
Yes.
Bob DiPalma.
Yes.
Patty Back.
Yes.
Jim Christopher.
Yes.
Thanks, Russell.
I'd like to take and another Adderholt, Megan, we like to hire her as the beginning of our cadet program again. We've had several people who are interested, but she's been working out at the station, and it goes along with her schooling too. So we'd like to hire her as one of the official new cadets, and we already have some jobs for her.
What we used to call puppy shots and stuff. Or not.
We have to give her shots.
She gets paid.
Yeah.
No, I meant, do they have to get the shots?
Yeah.
Pam always
I
called
know,
them
I
puppy
know.
shots, you remember?
She has to come in and fill out all the paperwork.
Okay. All right, that's your request. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll motion hire Megan as a cadet. Part-time at will, once her paperwork's all filled out here at the township.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, Carrie, would you take a roll call?
Bob DiPalma,
Yes.
Patty Back.
Yes.
Jim Christopher.
Yes.
Gina Musarelli.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's all I had to.
Okay, that's it. Any questions or comments? Now, a motion to adjourn?
I just have a short question. I was just curious, Kevin, where the plan is for the fire department succession plan? You've been in this role now for over a year, and one of the biggest issues that I heard when Steve left was we didn't have an assistant chief to follow. And I haven't seen anything, and
We don't have one.
that was the biggest problem when Steve McGee left was that wasn't in place, and that was supposed to be
No,
on the
that-
board's priority list for a
I would say
succession
that's
plan.
inaccurate to say that was the biggest problem. That was an issue we talked about.
I think the biggest portion of that was that Steve McGee had announced that he was going to leave 5 years early and did not, 1 year before he left, he still didn't have a plan. I have no plans on leaving right now. I'm thinking about retiring around 65, so I'm just starting about thinking about that. But no, I do not have a plan.
And we have had some discussions on some.
On people.
But that was not the biggest problem we had. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, motion to adjourn. I'll make it. Second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Not? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thanks. We're done. Okay. Thank you.